Welcome back to another episode of UBBA Unplugged. Joining us today is lead IT architect for Cellular at Duke Energy, Juan Macias. Juan, thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've got a few questions for you today, Juan. So if you don't mind, we'll just jump right into them and hit the ground running. And to start things off, utilities applications for SIM cards with multi-vendor capabilities have several key questions and concerns, particularly regarding network flexibility, costs, and potential downsides. So maybe set the stage for us a little bit and explain how multi-vendor SIM ensures consistent network coverage across different regions of a utilities coverage area.
Absolutely. One of the main problems that utilities, ourselves and my peers, we have faced throughout the years is the growing need of serving the grid with devices that can connect at different locations for different business cases. And we have come to realization that basically having a SIM card with a specific vendor, um, any of the commercial carriers will offer the ability to connect, but not always will have the best available signal. So it has been identified as a problem. That's why the diversification is happening across the different utilities, and the growing need of serving more and more of these devices also has or brings to the table a different set of problems. Um, you need to grow your number of devices, how you manage those, etc. And having them in a single source, single carrier, brings also the single point of failure, which for utilities is one of the worst case scenarios. So in recent years, taking basically the approach that we have or is managed in Europe, where you have a multi-vendor SIM card, you have the ability to incorporate that SIM card on any of the devices, and through different techniques and approaches to the SIM card, you are going to be able to activate the device in any of the different commercial carriers. That ensures consistency on your network coverage. You have in different locations, different vendors that most of them have today updated and bring to current standard their network, but there's still the differentiation between one and the other in terms of coverage and service and serviceability, etc. So the different regions in a utility has different coverage areas, and that's what we're trying to address.
That kind of leads me into where I was going, and that's, with all of the different vendors out there in a given coverage area, how does the SIM card handle priority settings when multiple vendors are available? And, what are the potential risks of losing priority on certain networks, especially when those critical situations that you mentioned arise?
No, that's a great question, Trey. Basically, there's a different sets of scenarios, right, for the SIM cards. If you are utilizing a single SIM card with multi-vendor, and you secure that SIM card from what is known as an aggregator, the ability to manage your connection to a specific commercial carrier um, allows you to keep your, or up to date, that's what is being offered, you keep your priority settings, meaning it's supposed that your device is going to be capable to sustain your priority across the network, even on a different type of scenario or event that happens, natural disaster, recovery, etc. Um, there's other scenario where the SIM card that offers the multi scenario will not carry on that specific priority. And that's when you are in what we have identified as a roaming type scenario. So you're going to be able to be served by whoever is giving or providing coverage in the area. And by this, we need to be very clear that most of these scenarios are in very rural areas of any given territory. There's cellular signal across the different areas, but it's not consistent by just one vendor. So you will have service, but you don't have the ability to carry on your same commercial carrier. So through the roaming scenario, you still have the ability to get connected and get service, but you will lose your priority because it has to be sent and routed in different ways so your connectivity is not lost. Those are mainly the two scenarios where we have identified that you can still have a multi-SIM or multi-vendor, but it's a risk, especially for utilities. If you are utilizing this for a critical infrastructure piece of equipment, you will experience the lack of prioritization throughout that network.
I see, and that's more in the rural setting as you were mentioning. Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's once again, it's very important to understand the rural areas across the different um, service territories. It's a known thing. It's very expensive, very difficult to bring service to those areas. Day to day, we are trying to take better steps to serve those devices better. Same with our partners. All the commercials, all the commercial carriers are taking very serious the approach that majority of the utilities are putting in their lab to show what the problem is. But let's face it, it's a matter of infrastructure and the cost associated. Is not easy, it's not cheap, and most important is for them is their business. For us is business as well, but different, totally different type of approach. So service in electricity versus service in the wireless world is two completely different areas, right?
So you touched on it a little bit. What are the cost implications of switching between different vendors, and are there any hidden fees associated with connecting to a different vendor's network?
Throughout the research and different stages, we have noticed probably a couple of years ago, even last year, it was pretty expensive to keep doing that type of, I like to call it jumping networks. But nowadays, with the inclusion of integrators, also the commercial carriers developing these partnerships, you can take still advantage of very good pricing. Um, the reality is it doesn't really matter. At some point, it's costly. Deploying devices that help us to manage the grid is costly, and maintaining those devices as well is costly. The 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 biggest reward that we get is that we can serve our end customers, bring electricity, bring energy to those communities that are far away, and everybody requires and has to have the ability to have energy at home, right, or in their industry. Going back to your specific question, switching between the different vendors is not difficult. It's costly mainly because you today having a single SIM is not yet something that everybody manages. Is not yet a piece of technology that is being well accepted as, like I mentioned it in Europe or Asia. In the States, the playground is not shared with everybody, and I don't want to say there's hidden fees or any as such. We haven't found it, but one thing that I can tell you is the um, actual cost and the impact that we have when we need to activate in different networks. There's a pieces of technology that takes, steps that take place, and you run into the risk of maybe the device is not going to wake up, maybe it's not going to take the change, number of scenarios, and that can be very costly because you need to send someone to fix it on the spot.
Excellent. Well, I really just have one more question here until we wrap things up, and that's more looking ahead. And how future-proof is the multi-vendor SIM solution in terms of network technology upgrades like 5G, and how should utilities adapt to new vendors or technologies as they become available?
That's an excellent question, Trip. The technology keeps moving, right? It's advancing. We saw the beginning of 4G, then 4G advanced. Now we have 5G. We are already talking about 6G, et cetera, et cetera. One thing that is for sure, utilities require to have proof that everything works because we carry on one of the most important pieces that is delivered to end customers every day, which is energy. So we cannot be gambling with, oh, let's put this new piece of technology here and let's see what happens. It's just unheard. So one of the one of the biggest pieces is behind the thought of having a multi-vendor solution in terms of a SIM is that not only the SIM needs to be capable to um, have profiles for the different carriers and be capable to switch from one to the next, but also the devices require to have an approach where it's simple to um, get over the air. You can reach it, you can talk to the device, you can modify those profiles. It's a number of steps in that particular sense where the technology grows hand to hand, not only across the carriers, but also the vendors, the SIM vendors, the cloud-based components, number of things. So as you can see, it's a very colorful umbrella of different technologies that need to work as a very well placed on that goes hand to hand with what you want to deliver. As final comment about this is the technology is advancing and is moving on. And like I said before, utilities, we don't go usually with the latest and greatest. We go with what is being proven and we go with what requires a number of years of testing and the ability to vet it and know that is right. At the end of the day, I think we have been taking the proper steps to modify, accumulate, and change those technologies and adapt and adopt new approaches, but it's a slow pace for specifically for utilities.
That's going to wrap things up for this episode of UBBA Unplugged. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to be here and share those great insights and offer that forward-looking perspective on everything.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite, and looking forward for the next one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, as a reminder, you can continue the conversation at the 2024 UBBA Summit and Plug Fest in Kansas City this November 5th through 7th. Head to ubbaplugfest.org for more information, and be sure to follow UBBA on social media to stay all up to date on all the latest news from the Alliance. We'll see you next time.